I must say, it's been quite a while since the last Monster Hunter video I did. To be fair, I've been preoccupied with other things and Generations wasn't exactly giving me much motivation to make videos about it. But with the release of the excellent Monster Hunter World, I feel now was as good of a time as ever to jump back into the series. And though I've talked extensively about the monsters that make this franchise what it is, something I believe to be of equal importance is not what you hunt, but rather what you're wearing. Considering the type of creatures players do battle with, it comes as no surprise that hunters would need to be decked out in all sorts of gear so that they don't get ripped to shreds 5 seconds into the fight. That's what Dark Souls is for. As such, it's imperative for hunters to wear the right type of armor when going up against such incredible odds, and with over 10 years worth of games and literally hundreds, almost thousands of different sets of armor available, narrowing it down to 10 isn't going to be easy. But I'm not one to back down from a challenge, so join me everyone, as I envelop myself in the skin of my fallen enemies. That's actually kinda disgusting. As I count down my top 10 favourite Monster Hunter armor sets. And the reason I say favourite is because while I'm certain there's equipment out there that has the objectively best stats and skills, for me personally, armor isn't just about what it does, but also how it looks, as I am all about fashion just as much as function. So even if there's a set out there that provides me with the best perks possible, if it makes me look like a rejected mook from an RPG that's trying way too hard to be edgy or a laughingstock, I won't be caught dead wearing it. Also, no event or crossover armor is included, and because of my playstyle, I'm looking at Blade Master armor only. And with all that cleared up, I believe now is as good of a time as ever to suit up and prepare for battle. And given the fact that I'm wearing what was carved from something like this, I have a feeling I'm gonna look fabulous out in the field. Rogelios set. My, this list is starting off with a literal bang, as the Rogelios is a species that specializes in explosions, with the weapons and armor following the same principle. Despite being one of the more limited garments in my opinion in regards to flexibility, I feel this protective gear can be extremely potent in the right hands and capitalizes on the strengths of the corresponding weapons, heck bombs in general, as if they weren't powerful enough to begin with. Before we get into battle properties, I first want to address how awesome this armor looks. I think the entire structure and composition gives off an incredibly powerful and menacing vibe, while simultaneously having such a distinct design and color scheme that is truly unique, making it what I consider one of the most creative and arousing sets to date. This applies to the male and especially female version. Just look at that skirt, you can poke someone's eye out with that thing. Moving away from fashion and into function, the Rogelios equipment is all about making explosions, with the armor featuring the skills Challenger, Bombardier, Adrenaline, and Evasion down. Due to the explosive attributes of this monster's weaponry, I feel this gear works very well for a more offensive playstyle, and has an element of risk versus reward, as it doesn't really provide many defensive options and limits evasiveness, instead preferring to amplify attack power and explosive damage, even more so when at low HP. I conclude that this makes the set great for monsters with large health pools or players who really favour the Rogelios weapons, so basically all of us, as the amount of damage output can be downright disgusting. But the biggest problem lies in the fact that this is essentially all it can do. Though I thoroughly believe this armor is perfect for slime or explosive ailment weapons, when regarding everything else, I think it's just okay. As abilities like Bombardier lose their value and Evasion down becomes a more noticeable drawback. So unless you're going to use weapons that go bang, I personally wouldn't recommend equipping this armor. I have noticed that if you want to make the most out of monster carves, having a full set of equipment is the ideal strategy, and the Rogelios armor is precisely why. As though it's perfectly fine by default, when used in tandem with my slime-covered switch axe, that's when the true power of Rogelios was at my fingertips, and it could turn any monster into a wonderful wall mount. Assless set. Monster Hunter Generations is very meh in my opinion. I mean, it's by no means a bad game, but to me it feels very mediocre compared to what's come before it. That being said, the flagship monsters were definitely the main highlight to me, and when it came down to which one made for the best outfit, I was attracted to the Assless like a magnet. Generally, I'd say flagship monsters have quite a bit of build up before being confronted. However, Assless appeared rather early on in Generations, and thanks to that I was able to obtain its armor very quickly, and I must say, I did not feel like removing it for a long time. First and foremost, yes, I do think the armor looks a little edgy. I mean, the Assless already has a rather extreme design, but this armor just screams put me in a mecha anime. Well, it's a good thing I love mecha anime, because I greatly admire the color scheme and body structure, having both a robotic and somewhat alien aesthetic, especially the S version which incorporates more of a dragon vibe. When out and about in the field, the Assless armor is overall very solid and in my opinion, great for hunters that like to apply pressure and wail on monsters like there's no tomorrow. This is thanks to the skills Half Stun, Repeat Offender, and at high rank Stamina Recover, increasing the chance of landing critical hits the longer I went on fighting without interruption, and getting knocked back was only a minor inconvenience due to Half Stun and Stamina Recover helping to prevent me from becoming a sitting duck. This setup, while not particularly potent, I find to be very reliable, and though I didn't use it for the more difficult monsters, I feel this is one of the best armor sets to go with at the time. It's such a shame Generations didn't deliver the Monster Hunter experience I was hoping for, but it still managed to weave in a few speckles of brilliance here and there, with both the Assless and its subsequent armor being one of them. Leather set. I imagine some of you may think this strange, since when hunting beasts the size of mountains, a simple set of leather isn't going to save you from being smacked around like a ragdoll. While this is true, as you really shouldn't bring leather armor to a hunt, unless the monster sucks. However, its purpose is not for protection, but rather resourcefulness, as I find it to be amazing for gathering materials and ideal for the early stages of Monster Hunter. Just goes to show that there's more to this series than hacking away at enemies, and oh man can it get boring. When you first begin your epic journey, there's not a lot to pick and choose from when it comes to equipment, as at this point hunting monsters is not the aim of the game. Instead, the objective is to gather materials and scour the landscape. I consider that false advertising! This is where the leather armor comes in, as its purpose is to provide passive skills that allow me to make the most out of collecting supplies. When wearing this particular set, I gain access to Gathering +1, Speed Gatherer, and Spiritus Whim, allowing me to gather more, gather it faster, and make it less likely to break pickaxes and bug nets. From my perspective, this armor serves almost no purpose in a fight, but because of how Monster Hunter is designed, there's always going to be a point where farming for resources is mandatory, making this outfit tremendously useful and really cut down on the more tedious aspects of the game. At least until World pretty much fixed everything. I fucking love what they did! I must also applaud the armor for its design, because I rather like it. The green and yellow color scheme definitely gives off a sense of exploration, and the entire composition is very slick, with just enough additional features to prevent it from becoming too dull. I'll always believe that the main appeal of Monster Hunter is fighting those larger than life brutes, but at the end of the day, you're not getting anywhere without doing the obligatory paperwork. And thankfully, the leather armor not only makes the situation less painful, but also helps the player to make the most out of it. It really is the little things in life that matter. Garuga set. I find it rather amusing how some of the most hated monsters can be very useful for providing all sorts of apparatus, as while I personally don't have a problem with the Yayan Garuga, based on the comments and message boards I've read, I seem to be in the minority in regards to my opinion. Then again, what's new at this point? Nevertheless, though fighting the Garuga can apparently be a pain, wearing its scales instead allows me to bring the pain, as I consider this to be one of the most surefire and reliable sets out there that was useful no matter the situation. It seems even the worst monsters have some positives to them. Except the Bull Drum, that thing is just woeful. Thanks to Monster Hunter having such a diverse cast of behemoths and their subsequent gear, the Garuga armor is in my opinion one of the most unique looking and downright unbelievable sets I've ever seen. Obviously it is very vibrant in regards to color scheme, but I personally find it to be rather remarkable, looking similar to samurai plating or the type of stuff you see in Dynasty Warriors, especially with G rank. That's getting straight Lu-Bu up in this bitch. Speaking of Lu-Bu, wearing this armor also makes me feel like a powerhouse, since it has an incredibly valuable assortment of skills that I believe can suit just about any hunter, weapon or playstyle, those being Critical Eye, Earplugs and Razor Sharp. Now, these aren't exactly game changers, but I maintain that they provide significant benefits for just about anyone including myself. Earplugs being great for all monsters that actually pose a threat, Razor Sharp which allowed me to hack away with far less downtime, and Critical Eye doing what it says on the tin. This works for me as I enjoy wearing armor that is multi-purpose and found it to be suitable for all situations, without any major drawbacks. Though because of that, when taking into account all the alternate options myself and other players can go with, there's a good chance of it getting lost amongst everything else that's on offer. Regardless, I remain fixed on my belief that this is one of the most steadfast and well-rounded types of gear that any hunter should add to their collection. Provided they haven't broken the game in half while fighting this thing. Is it really that bad? Because I personally don't see it. Elatrian armor. It should come as no surprise that Elder Dragon gear made it onto the list. I mean, look at these things, they're essentially gods, so naturally their weapons and armor should be omnipowerful as well, right? Well, sadly, some of these deities aren't so sanctified. You fucking suck! But mercifully, the Elatrian's equipment retains its holy properties, so much so that at times I didn't feel the need to take it off. though heed my advice and remove the armor whenever possible. I mean, I've been stuck wearing this for over a year now. Do you know what it's like to try and sleep in this thing? Because you don't want to. When you hear the phrase Elder Dragon armor, I'm sure something very majestic and exceptional looking comes to mind. And well, the Elatrian set definitely has that going for it. Okay, I've got to point out that first and foremost, it looks really edgy. I mean, the Assless set was already pushing the whole trying too hard to look cool to begin with, but this just takes the cake. I mean, this is the type of costume you'd expect Reaper to wear. In spite of looking like the ultimate tryhard, I do appreciate the design, as I think it gives off a very powerful and simultaneously mystical vibe, backed up by the colour scheme, which I also admire, as the use of the more subtle tones helps the colours to blend seamlessly together. Wearing the skin of a god sounds like a very empowering experience, and my god, did it empower me like nothing else. Aside from having very high base defense, the talents I was provided with were downright ridiculous, those being Evade Extender, Elemental Attack Up, both Blightproof and Latent Power for the standard set, with Awaken and Peak Performance for the G rank version. Now those are some pretty awesome abilities if I say so myself, as to me, it seemed to favour those who are otherwise experts at the game and rewarding the player for high levels of performance that enabled me to rip and tear my prey to pieces. And even though grinding the Elatrian was one hell of an undertaking, I'd say it was very much worth it for such an awesome set of armour. However, it does punish those who play recklessly with double stun, so be warned. When going through so much time and effort to reach, let alone take down an Elder Dragon, I want to feel like it's all been worth it outside of just bragging rights. And thankfully, Elatrian was kind enough to bless me with a fantastic set of armour that, while not for everyone, allows the host to unlock their full potential and reach a higher plane of hunting. Gormogon set. Whenever a new flagship monster enters the scene, I notice that the equipment you can make from it is usually very potent stuff, with maybe the Anjanath being the one exception. I still love you though, and this game is fucking amazing! Even after their debut, I'm convinced that flagship weapons and armor are generally good in whatever game they're featured in, but the Gormogon gear in particular really stole the show in 4 Ultimate, as this beast gifted me with some of the most useful and arguably essential abilities for the majority of the game that makes it in my mind a must-have for 4 Ultimate. Sadly, its novelty has started to wear off in future games, but I believe it's still got plenty going for it regardless. After all, no monster can have the spotlight forever. Not even the Rogelios deserves to be at the center of everything. Alright, I take it back, I'm sorry! It goes without saying that the armor you make from each monster gives you a considerable advantage when facing them again, and I'm confident in saying that the Gormogon armor is the literal embodiment of that concept. Since this dragon is the source of the Frenzy virus, the garment you make from it is designed to counter and in some cases use the virus to the hunter's benefit. This is thanks to gaining the abilities Challenger, Bioresearcher, Antivirus at high rank, and Elemental Attack up at G level. Also, there's Fire Resistance -20, but honestly, who cares? With these 4 abilities combined, they enabled me to become any frenzied monster's worst nightmare, as not only was it harder to catch and be infected by the virus, but my attack power also increased if I was able to negate the contagion, and made me even stronger when the monster became angry, in addition to elemental attacks dealing more damage. And at this point, any monster that had so much as a trace of the frenzy virus within it was going to die faster than No Man's Sky's player base. Also, I find the aesthetics to be very striking, with a dark and downright evil presence to it. However, the colour scheme doesn't go overboard and makes for, in my eyes, one of the more slick and stylish sets out there. That being said, I did notice how the potency of this armor is reduced drastically when going up against anything that isn't connected to the virus. Though considering how big of a role Frenzy plays in 4 Ultimate and how many monsters contracted it, that's not very often. Though the point is that in the more typical circumstances, I think it falls flat on its face. All things considered, I cannot deny how much use I got out of it, and it gave me one hell of a leg up in possibly one of the best Monster Hunter games to date. And I say possibly because world is now a thing. Seriously, this game is fantastic! TRex set. Even though I tend to give this thing a fair amount of shit, I feel it's rightfully earned its place as one of the greatest monsters in the franchise, and I'm not surprised as to why so many people love it. And I believe the best thing to come out of this beast is its armor. In fact, I found both the normal and brute versions to be incredibly useful and lasted me a very long time, being effective against just about every fiend that dared to test my patience. You gotta hand it to the TRex, you really pulled through this time. Though that might just be me relishing in the act of wearing the corpse of something that gave me so much shit. Man, I cannot wait to get those Giganox garments. I hate this game. The funny thing about the TRex armor is that while I tend to be pretty adamant about which set I think is superior when the monster in question has a subspecies, in this case I honestly thought they were equally as good as each other. For starters, I think both versions look great. having a very sharp and simple base design, but with enough extra features to strengthen the connections to its source, as well as making it look more visually unique. The normal version in particular has a superb colour scheme. I love how the blues and golds contrast against each other. Of course, looks aren't everything, and trust me when I say these pieces of plating are packing some pretty powerful perks, +1 for alliteration. In my eyes, the standard TRex armor has a greater focus on attack, with the skills Attack Plus and Gormogon, whereas the brute version is more well-rounded with earplugs, speed eating, and capture guru. So each of them can offer something different for the player, and aside from slow sharpener, I see no downsides to using them. Also, because the TRex is such a commonly featured fiend, I had a tendency of encountering it around the middle point of whichever game it was available in, which is very beneficial, as I'd argue either sets of these armor can last you a damn long time and are a worthy investment. The TRex is a monster I'm still rather on the fence about, since though my opinion towards it has improved over time, I'm overall not the biggest fan of it personally. But I will always give credit where credit is due, and I must admit, whether it be the standard species or its brute of a brother, TRex armor is something I will always appreciate this monster for. Now get out of my sight before I get salty again. Stygian Zinogre set. Moving on from a monster I tend to resent to something I can never seem to get enough of, the Zinogre once again turns out to be one of my favourite monsters in just about every aspect. While I think the standard armor is fine as is, the Stygian variant makes the former look like a bunch of jokers. A Xenoblade reference in a Monster Hunter video. How strange. As I generally think it's very solid and can benefit a wide assortment of hunters. However, I detected that it greatly rewarded those of the highest caliber and has the potential to be something that makes everything else obsolete if used to its maximum potential, at which point I was really feeling it. God damn it, I'm doing it again! Before I break down the benefits of this armor set, let's just look at this, and I mean really look at this, because my god, it is amazing! Everything about it just screams yes. The color scheme, the size and structure, all the little details, just how unique and completely original it is, the fact that it looks so fucking awesome, the G-Rank version resembling the devil himself, god damn it, do I love this armor! And it is without a doubt in my mind the best looking set in the entire series, which really says a lot when you think about it. Well, now that I've finished gushing over how it looks, let's say I gush over how it performs. I noticed that the Stygian gear has a strange parallel to the Elatrian armor in regards to functionality, as the type of skills I obtained were focused on benefiting hunters with a considerable amount of proficiency. In this case, abilities like Peak Performance, Evasion +1, Dragon Attack +1, and Focus made it so that when I was performing optimally, I could go to town on just about any monster, especially those weak to dragon attacks, more than usual, and also didn't require nearly as much time and effort to obtain as the Elatrian alternative, while still offering similar benefits, at least in my opinion. And I found it to be disgusting when used against monsters I could run circles around. The poor things never stood a chance. With that said, I wouldn't recommend this set for those who aren't the best when it comes to keeping their health meter full at all times, and recovery down is a bit of a bummer. But even with those shortcomings, this is easily the best looking armor of the series, and perfect for those who know these games like the back of their hand. Suresh EOS set. I'm not gonna lie to you people, this entry probably has the largest amount of personal bias in regards to my judgment. As well, yes, I think the armor is great and definitely worth crafting. What it did for me and how it benefited the way I play Monster Hunter was pretty much perfect and got me through some of the hardest challenges the game threw at me. And let me tell you, For Ultimate ain't fucking around. Though some of the previous entries might be objectively better, I can't help but put this baby so high on the list, as I never would have got past half of the game without it. Hey, don't judge me, that Rajang is an asshole! I'm sure you're all curious to know why I can't stop drooling all over this apparatus. Well, it's mainly to do with the talents that came with it. Now I must say, these particular assets aren't groundbreaking and may seem underwhelming to some, those being Constitution +2, Mind's Eye, and Negate Bleeding. But let me tell you, these abilities could not be more beneficial for me if they tried. These three skills, well, 2 to be precise, were exactly what I needed when going up against whatever monster, especially the more difficult ones, as Mind's Eye meant that my attacks wouldn't be deflected and caused me to stagger, and increased Constitution made it so that my health recovered at light speed after taking a nasty hit. I swear, if you drink an immunizor with this armor on, it's almost like you never took any damage to begin with. Because of this, I would spend less time getting knocked about or having to use up my resources, allowing me to focus all of my attention on the fight at hand, learning the behavior of my prey, its attack patterns, and ultimately becoming a better hunter because of it. I'm also a big fan of the design, as it's far more simple and straightforward than what the series usually offers. Can someone say clusterfuck? But I feel that's what gives it a great sense of charm, and elements like the shoulders, waistline, and headpiece just add the right amount of flavour to prevent it from becoming forgettable. The same goes for the colour scheme. I'm sure I might be overblowing just how good this armor actually is, and to be fair, I completely understand that. But even with my personal bias out of the way, I still feel this is a solid set of silverware that's at the very least worth trying out and very useful for monsters that tend to take a large chunk out of your life, and it will always have a special place in my heart for being more useful than anything I've had the pleasure of wearing. Except for... Azura Ralphalos said, I'm fairly confident that the majority of you are thinking the same thing right now. Well, would you look at that. Something Ralphalos related is at the #1 spot. That's about as predictable as the Black Knight being in a Fire Emblem related video. Oh come on people, I don't feature him in that many of my videos. He's been in no less than 10. Nobody asked you, smartass! Yes, I'm sure this entry is a shock to nobody, but I'm sorry, I just love the Azura set so fucking much. To this day, it is my go-to armor for each and every Monster Hunter game once it becomes available, and I found it to be so useful that I very rarely had to switch out once equipped. I mean sure, there's those one or two monstrosities which will rip through it like it's toilet paper, asshole! But when factoring in all the good that came from this blue beauty, and how it stands above all the other garments that came before and after it, is a testament to just how miraculous this apparatus is. As if I didn't love you enough already. Like every piece of armor in the game, the first thing that caught my eye was the design, which I personally think is great. Though the color scheme is somewhat basic, the actual structure and arrangement of it I find to be equally stimulating and menacing. Not to mention, I admire the way it weaves in more organic elements like wings on the back to give off a more unique appearance, which makes it feel like I've become one with my prey. Plus the small details on the helmet and shins are a very nice touch too. That alone instantly drew me to it, but once I discovered what I was capable of when wearing it, is what cemented my love for this armor. Now the standard Azura Ralphalos set gives you critical eye +2, razor sharp and earplugs with -10 health, which to me are some very good skills, and health -10 isn't that big of an issue if I'm being honest. However, the G rank version not only increased the critical hit rate, but also swaps razor sharp for mind's eye. With all this power at my disposal, I found myself wearing this armor as often as I could, especially during Free Ultimate, as what it offered was all I needed when going up against pretty much anything. I didn't have to worry about monster roars, bouncing off thick hides, and there was a very high chance I could land critical hits with every swing of my switch axe. I'll be the first to say that some sets have far more optimal skills that are better suited for specific monsters or playstyles. However, while I don't consider this to be the most effective armor, I personally feel it to be the most efficient gear I've ever worn, allowing me to concentrate on my prey without worrying about the little things that may screw me over, making each hunt all the more engaging and has subsequently become my main attire for every single game then on after. Thanks to all the magnificent monsters this series has graced us with, there are just as many different weapons and armor that allow players to take down the mightiest of foes, and to me, the Azura Ralphalos armor was precisely what I needed to best whatever beast dared to test my strength, which is why it takes the #1 spot as my favourite Monster Hunter armor set. This has been BlazingKnight. I wish you all a great night, take care, and no matter what your playstyle, fashion sense, personal preference, or whatever it may be, Monster Hunter will be sure to have the gear that's just right for you. And with the series now in full HD and even more monsters being added to the already enormous roster, the idea of becoming a hunter has never looked so good. Thank you all for watching today, I hope you had a great time and enjoyed the video. Please let me know what you thought in the comments and what are some of your favourite armor sets in Monster Hunter throughout the generations. Huge thank you to all my patrons to help support the channel and make these videos possible. And I want to give shoutouts to Chaos Sableye, Justin Konovich, Samuel Line, Nate Perkins, Midnight Castle, Petankofan32, Tivis James Little 4, Almont, Vinton Clark, Jeremy Redinger, The Mangle Idea, Perfect Oblivion, Maggie Full, and Farrell Ape 329. Thank you all so much for your support on Patreon. I love you all from the bottom of my heart. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like and consider subscribing to my channel as well. And if you would like to go that extra mile, please consider supporting my Patreon page in order to help further the channel and receive additional benefits. Anyway, that's it from me. I'll see you all next time.